The second panel, as listed out, is climate mitigation in agriculture. What could be some of the issues, challenges, and some of the approaches that we could look at? The panel is being moderated by Apurva Khandelwal. Apurva, are you here? Apurva. Apurva is a senior program lead, CEEW. He leads the Council's Sustainable Food Systems program, drawing from over a decade of experience in bioeconomy sustainability. He has developed advanced biofuel and biomaterial technologies, advised global agro-food firms, and influenced government policies for scalability. Apurva champions systems thinking and interdisciplinary approaches. He is currently leading initiatives to scale sustainable agriculture, promote healthy soils, and optimize government support for food systems. Apurva holds degrees from IIT Delhi and INSEAD France. Welcome, Apurva. Sorry, clarification. Are you Apurva or Apurv?
Apurva.
Apurv. Okay, you're Apurv. With an E.
Yeah.
Okay, Apurv.
My dad had some fun spelling my name.
I just noticed, sorry, my bad side, Apurv, okay. Next on stage, I'll invite Mr. Raj Ganguli. He's the Senior Agri-Business Specialist, Food and Agriculture Global Practice, the World Bank Group. Mr. Ganguli. Mr. Raj Ganguli focuses on fostering local wellness markets through sustainable resource management and entrepreneurship in South Asia. Manas, you need to cut down your volume, please. With extensive experience across Bangladesh, Bhutan, India, and Nepal, Raj has graduated in agriculture from Banaras Hindu University, Varanasi, and holds postgraduate qualifications in horticulture and agribusiness management. With a 24-year background in international development organizations and private firms, Raj employs design thinking for community benefits and market opportunities through technology and innovation. Glad to have you with us. Next on the panel, I want to invite Mr. Karan Mangotra, Partnership and Strategy Specialist, International Solar Alliance. Mr. Mangotra is a seasoned climate change expert with expertise in energy and climate change policy advisory and consulting. He is currently a partnership and strategy specialist at the International Solar Alliance. His previous roles at the World Bank and UN Environment Program involved managing projects in climate change, energy, efficiency, and sustainability. With deep experience in policy advisory, climate finance, GHG inventories, and international negotiations, Karan has significantly influenced India's climate policy and maintains a robust network across multiple sectors and government levels. Glad to have you with us. It's now my pleasure to invite Satyabrata Acharyya. You might know him as Satya. Satya is the co-founder Cognisphere Solutions Limited and has played a pivotal role in fostering strategic collaborations with civil society organizations and government agencies aiming to tackle poverty in economically disadvantaged regions. With an extensive background spanning over 30 years at Pradhan, he has successfully integrated programs and spearheaded multi-state projects focused on poverty alleviation, rural livelihood enhancement, and sustainable agriculture practices. Presently, as the leader of Cognisphere's People and Climate Action vertical, he is actively involved in driving impactful initiatives in afforestation and agroforestry. Glad to have you with us, Satya. So without much ado, I will hand over the panel to you, Apur.
Oh, well done pronouncing my name. And thank you. I think a lot has been already said in the keynote speeches and the last panel that sets the context for this panel. But very quickly, allow me to highlight a few things that I'm sure are not new to you. One, Climate change is here and happening. It's not a distant future. We are seeing what's happening in Mumbai. Dubai gets flooded. Southern Brazil, Kenya gets flooded. Thousands displaced. All that is happening as we speak. South Asia, Southeast Asia, parts of Africa facing heat, extreme heats. All that is happening. Our farms are feeling the heat literally and metaphorically. Yield losses, milk productivity losses, income losses, all that we have discussed already. At CW, we are doing research on how accelerated is this sort of impact. And what we see is this is just the beginning. In last 50 years, the frequency of floods has increased 8-folds. The frequency of cyclones has increased 12-folds. And in just last 20 years, the area which is prone to drought in India has increased 13 times. So I think we need to appreciate the acceleration that is sort of hampering us, and this is just the beginning of what is going to happen. Agriculture is very interesting because it is the most vulnerable, but also one of the key drivers of the climate change. And we have all talked about this. The numbers in India, we know 14% is attributed to agriculture, but that's really accounting method that attributes 14%. But if you also consider the emissions because of irrigation and the mechanization on the farm, the number actually will go up to 22-23% of India's emissions. So it's a significant portion of India's emissions. And I think nothing is new to this group. I've myself been on rants about all this in multiple forums, and we have all discussed the solutions to death. We know for livestock sector, what are the solutions? It's productivity increasing the productive percentage or the proportion of the animal herd, ration balancing, better concentrates. Everybody's talking about it, and there are some decentralized solutions also. Similarly, for rice, which is the next one, rice-driven methane, DSR, SRI, crop diversification, AWD, which is being promoted. We know for fertilizers, better use of fertilizers, efficient use, etc. We know all the solutions also. I think the point that was made in the last panel is that there is enough sort of science and solutioning that has happened. Very interesting that after all that effort, the sustainable agriculture practices still remain at the margins. I think that's the real challenge. In 2021, CW did a report on sustainable agriculture practices, the status of such sustainable agriculture practices and systems in India under the umbrella of Food and Land Use Coalition. And what we noted was that most of the sustainable practices in India were being practiced in less than 5% of the net zone area. So, except practices such as agroforestry or rainwater harvesting, none of them has scaled up beyond 5% of the net zone area, and that's a big issue to me. I think that's where we should start this conversation, and this panel can really try to uncover why is it that we are not able to scale when the challenge is so significant. And I think some of the contours were already framed in the keynote speeches that happened today, but let's try to discover more. And very glad to see you all here, interested in such an important topic. A very exciting panel to uncover this. The panel really thinks that we need to make it as engaging as possible with the audience. So expect some innovation from this panel. But we will also require a lot of stakeholder engagement here, or the audience engagement, starting from filling in the seats in the front. I think there's just too many empty seats and too many folks at the balcony view. So if we can sort of move a bit ahead, create a more cozy setting, would be nice for the panel to engage. And
It might be encouraging for you to know that there are people online also, so there should be some hopeful.
that's really nice. Perfect. So also requesting online participants to chime in. And I see people already moving towards front, so encouraging that. Let's start with getting a sense of the room about how optimistic we are that agriculture can actually become a lever of mitigation. I think the most useful indicator would be whether in 2030, when the NDCs get revised, what do you think is the likelihood of agriculture emerging as a lever of mitigation in the NDCs? I think that's a very useful indicator to think of, because the next revision is going to happen. Do we expect that agriculture will emerge as a mitigation lever in the nationally determined contributions of India? Right? Let's ask from the panel first. So I'm requesting a one-word response. What does your heart say? Looking at the way things are evolving, right? India is also very bullish on national and global forums about our environmental stewardship, but also sensitive to talk about agriculture. But in the recent COP, we did see agriculture got talked. So how hopeful we are? So what's the likelihood in percentage, if we can ask from the panel? What do you think, Karan? One word response.
One word response?
Yes, one percentage.
Well, the one word response is yes, agriculture has a huge role to play, but give me one line. Looking at, I'm coming here from an energy perspective. So if I look at resilience, jobs and livelihoods, access to energy, and all of this with an underpinning of affordable and reliable finance, I think if development is done the right way, it will surely have a lot of climate co-benefits.
Yeah, very smart way to not respond to the specific question that I asked Karan, but appreciate it. Raj, is there a percentage likelihood that you would want to associate with?
Absolutely. I agree with you and Karan that there is no point of departure. That in this global discourse of climate change, I think the sense of urgency needs to be felt, among all the actors, and we need to see that whatever little one can do at whatever level, it needs to be attended to.
Trying one last time. Would you want to? The question is, what is the percentage likelihood, in your opinion, Satya, that the next revision of NDCs will have agriculture as one of the key levers of mitigation?
See, difficult to set a timeline, but of course I would say that I'm very hopeful because of the fact that almost 85% of our farmers are actually smallholder, marginal holder farmers. So that's something which is important to understand, and agriculture continue to be a major source of livelihood. So would like to see that yes, people do everything in order to make farming sustainable. So my hope emanates from that. Also, with now, many cases in many states, if you come to, let's say, to Jharkhand, to Bihar, to West Bengal, Chhattisgarh, Madhya Pradesh, with men, migrating en masse, the responsibility of running agriculture has squarely fallen on the woman. So there are challenges, but at the same time, I continue to believe that women are a much stronger stakeholder in agriculture, and the time has come when the country should actually recognize that and formulate appropriate policies. So I'm hopeful on those two counts.
Yeah. Thank you for those remarks. Maybe we can also quickly get a sense of what the audience thinks about what is the likelihood of India's NDCs in 2030, the next revision that is going to happen, will have agriculture as one of the levers. How many of us think the probability is more than 50%? I see 6 hands, 7, 8, 9-ish. How many believe the probability is less than 50%? Yeah. So nationally determined contributions, NDCs, are government commitments at a global stage, whether that they will sort of achieve, they try to achieve, publicly committing. And the commitments are in the form of, for example, how much area that they want to afforest and come under the cover, what is the intensity of the GDP, the carbon intensity of GDP, etc. But we don't see conversations around agriculture emerging as a mitigation lever. That's, in my opinion, is a clear indicator of how the stakeholders are looking at agriculture still. And the narrative remains adaptation-led mitigation and mitigation as a co-benefit, which is, I think, it's also sometimes a false duality, because a lot of adaptation measures are just very much mitigation measures. But just trying to understand from the group, what's the level of optimism that we collectively have, because then we need to address the layers here. Why do we think so? Where are the biggest challenges? So the conversation that I think we should have as part of this panel, and the panel was interested in going a bit deeper into what are those fundamental challenges, then what are those key catalytic solutions, and then the path ahead. But trying to get a sense of the room in the beginning. So there were 10 folks who think the probability is more than 50% that NDCs would have agriculture as a key mitigation lever. How many feel it is less than 50%? Actually, almost similar numbers, and the rest are undecided because it's such a complex question to answer, and that we also saw as part of the panel responses. But let's move ahead.
Just one point
yes.
of clarity. So I think we all should know that India has not yet committed. It is shying away from the mitigation responsibility in agriculture. It's not part of Global Methane Forum. Though with the sheer scale of rice production in India, it has to consider a kind of reflection that where is the second is the livestock population, globally largest cattle population that we have, and the other ruminants, and the goats and camels also, if you include, then also India will quite huge. So I think yes, till this time we have considered sustainable agriculture, and in that camouflage we are surviving. But I think we need some drastic calls on this, and to prepare ourselves to see that how our agriculture mitigation efforts also qualifies, and we learn from also global advances in this direction. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks for really setting the tone, Raj, for the conversation. Then, what can really fundamentally change our view and the acceleration with which India is moving towards unlocking agriculture's potential for mitigation, right? All these solutions that we talked about, what can really fundamentally change the way they are getting mainstreamed, can really scale these solutions up? What is impeding it? So maybe one word response, let's start with that again. One word or one phrase, in your opinion, what's the most fundamental challenge that keeps it away and all these solutions to remain at the margins? Maybe Karan again.
Thanks, Apurv. I coming from the International Solar Alliance, where the main ethos of why we were set up was to take the lessons of India and replicate and scale them in our member countries. We have around 120 of them now, with an active engagement of in 92 countries. One of the things that we see, which is common to across our member states, is the importance. Most of our member countries are least developed countries or small island nations, where the biggest problem is access to energy. Across our member countries, there are around 600 odd million who have no access to formal forms of energy. And most of these communities or people are reliant on natural ecosystems. So providing them energy independence while keeping the livelihood issues in mind, the gender considerations, and then the affordable and reliability of finance effectively is the key challenge that we see common across all the things. Of course, when we go deeper into sectors or countries, it's the customization and taking lessons from some of the lessons that we've had in India to replicate them there. Do I have more time to delve deeper into some of our demonstration projects, or you have?
Yeah. No, I was thinking maybe we can quickly do one round and then get into why we think these are some of the biggest challenges and what are some solutions. And I think that's where we can discuss that. But within the item that you identified, including energy access, finance, etc., is there a particular one that you think is really the biggest challenge that must be addressed? In terms of priority.
It's a very difficult thing to choose one over the other. It's a very layered, systemic thing. And four things that one of the biggest things that we see, which moves the needle on behavior is actually demonstration projects. People like to see how this works on ground. To actually put out things like a demonstration of a solar cold storage in Senegal. Learnings from our demand aggregation models of how price discovery is going down. Looking at innovative financial products. So there are huge amounts of guarantee products that are available in the market, but very few for decentralized solar solutions in Africa. So how could you customize those kind of things? Those are essentially the big blocks of challenges that you see across many of these countries. How we go about getting towards resolving them is then the next part of the challenge.
Thanks. Well said. Maybe I'll move to Satya. Satya, what do you think, in your opinion and such a long experience in this space, what's the really fundamental challenge that is impeding the scale up of these solutions?
There are 3-4 things I would like to take a little bit more time. First of all, I would say that there is a challenge of investment. So over a period of time, it is happening for the last 15-20 years. The investment in rural areas has really come down. You may have roads and culverts, etc., being built, but essentially look at MGNRG's budget, look at RKVY, look at major irrigation programs, major agriculture programs. You will find that there is little left for smallholder farmers. Most of the schemes are actually designed for bigger farmers, medium-sized farms, not for the smallholder farmers. While we have an overwhelming majority of the farming families who belong to small and marginal farmers, but there are problems of compatibility with these schemes. So that is one part which is to be understood. Second part is about who is engaging with people in the villages. That's again another problem. 7-10 years back, exactly, sometimes around 2015-16, I did a study in Jharkhand. I found out of 245 blocks, there are only 43 blocks where you have block level agriculture extension officer. There aren't anybody who is talking about agriculture extension and talking about, the Krishi Prajukti Sahayak and village, level workers, VLWs at the panchayat level. The panchayats are also in a very moribund shape. So you can also find that, who is engaging and, from government, systems, who is providing these extension services to the farmers. That's the second part. Third part is, very critical to this whole sustainability thing is about assessing the needs very critically. How much of irrigation, how much of, soil organic carbon, etc. So if you just look at the, the government has set up this, soil testing laboratories here and there, but highly unreliable in terms of, kinds of results that are coming up. On the basis of that, you can't just, determine, okay, my farm actually requires this much amount of nitrogen and phosphate and potash. That's again the third. So there aren't problem-solving services available. There aren't diagnostic facilities available. And the fourth and most, crucial thing is about, as I said, that most of our farmers currently, that the farming is actually being shouldered by the woman. And look at the situation. We work in, tribal areas, for the last 30, 35 years we have been working in Madhya Pradesh, Chhattisgarh and these areas. But forget about just, only tribal areas where because of the customary rules, the women can't be landowners. But even only 2% of the agricultural lands are actually owned by the women. So they are not technically landowners. Because they don't own lands, you can find they are also not entitled to, let's say, Kisan credit card. That's one part. The second part is about asset subsidies because you are not a farmer. So you can't just, draw asset subsidy from the government. You are not a landowner, so that is why you can't be the registered farmer with the government, so can't access MSP for, let's say, paddy, wheat, or whatever you produce. And so on top of that, all kinds of trainings that are being provided by, let's say, KVKs and others, the women are actually not recognized as farmers. So even the agriculture extension worker comes and you find that, he will just, he will talk to the men in the villages and leave the village and, distribute some seeds, some fertilizers, etc., and then just leaves the village. Women are completely neglected. And on top of that, you can also find that, if they want to take a loan for, let's say, buying pump set or any agriculture asset, it's just not possible. So you are not getting asset subsidies, you are not able to take loans from the bank, you are not able to access the MSP services. So how can you actually then, so where from investment would come? And who actually builds your capability? And in absence of this, complete vacuum in terms of agriculture extension services, diagnostic service, it's extremely difficult to see that, they actually become champions of sustainable agriculture and so on and so forth. So whatever agriculture, so firstly, they were not used to taking decisions in agriculture. So most of the cases you can find that, okay, they were involved in paddy transplantation, hoeing, etc., etc., all the backbreaking jobs. But in terms of which variety, which seed, how much of fertilizer, how much of loan, and where to sell, and how much, at what price, they are not, they are not used to taking this kind of decisions. So in absence of all these, you can find that, the adoption rate of sustainable agriculture in the villages is actually, pretty, very slow, I would say. That's my understanding.
Quite some grounds you covered, Satya. So I see, starting from who is engaging to who is being targeted to what solutions and how are they, whether they're tailored and how are they being delivered and how the problem solving is happening. A lot has to change. So I think I would then change the question to you, Raj, instead of asking what is that one big fundamental issue that you see, because I think there is a general perception that I'm seeing that we cannot really talk about one big challenge. It's a mix of things, but still to scope the conversation, maybe the top three, if you want to expand, what are the top three big issues that we must address?
Thank you, Aparu. I think, but I will take your first question, and I will challenge myself that And I think the one word which I left in my previous conversation is the sense of urgency, whether we all feel that urgency. And in that conundrum, I think when we all know, as you started with, that climate change is reality. We are all part of that. We are day and out, we are, living that. And might be we are seeing many of the climate change, which we can see it, but many of the things which we are not able to see, which our research and development has not progressed to that level. What is the physiological changes that is happening? What is in the insect world that is changing? What is the microbial world that our fellow expert, he is not there. He was telling the earlier. Yeah, you are here. So many of the things we are unable to see the change. But when we admit that yes, climate change is happening, change is the only constant, right? Can we question ourselves that are we changing? Can we say that, okay, the business as usual, that is what GDP says, the growth, and this comes to my mind that, whether the planet Earth can sustain this growth, whether this growth is bringing me happiness, whether this growth is bringing me resilience, and if not, then where I should, because, I see like, there was one old adage, the story in my childhood I have seen that Kalidas is sitting on a branch of tree and that cutting the same branch of the tree. I am seeing that urgency, and I am seeing that, when, we are seeing this in realism, still we are conditioning ourselves in the natural daylight. We are sitting 8 to 10 hours in the artificial light. We are conditioning the air for our requirement. We are, we are not moving away from our business as usual food habits. And we are saying that, okay, we are fine, we will bring solutions. Solutions are there. And in the earlier session, we heard that farmer is not sustainable. And farmers are the most vulnerable, and Satyabrata ji is saying that in our country it is a smallholder and all. When I work in Bastar region and I hail from Jharkhand, I find that they are the most happiest one. They need not to breathe in 400 ppm of 2.4. They have at least clean spring water to drink. They have a piece of land where they can control their food situation for their family. So I think they are well adapted than me, and I think in the end of this food chain, as a customer, I am still hooked to my salary from World Bank, and I am protecting my family, and I am unable to shrug off that barrier, and I am most vulnerable in that, enjoying the flood in the in Delhi or in Bangalore. If I am burnt with the water systems, and we can speak on. But I think what I'm hinting at is that for agriculture sector, if we have to be serious on this, we need to see that whether business as usual process will work or whether we need to do some more scenario analysis. And in that, I will leave behind some thought process with you. To my understanding, all the urea, madam said about banning urea and all, if we see the genesis of these problems, it is only 80 years, 90 years old, like from the World War II, when Professor Gulati said chemicalization of things happened. Before that, we all had good systems and everything was in place. Why it was in place? Because everything was related. Like livestock was related to agriculture, agriculture was related to horticulture, horticulture was related to fisheries, and so on. All sectors we had integrated this. Now what we have done, we have dissected that. That in every organization, water specialist, someone calls, someone says agriculture specialist, someone is horticulture specialist and all. I'm not relating specialists to ministries, but it is true that we have given a different streams of thoughts. And now in different streams, when that goes there, they are unable to deliver the kind of integrated system that what smallholder is looking for. And how do we can bring that coherence, in delivering that system, requirements of that smallholder farm. And therein we have to see that, how the per unit soil, per unit water, per unit bioresources, what is that optimum, requirements that can fulfill the requirements at the local level and also connect to the, our in local markets or distant markets. That's surplus. But that optimization, unless we balance it out in the system and see the interconnectedness of the, different elements of that, it will be very difficult. Thank you.
Yeah. Again, some really big challenges framed. Connecting the interconnectedness, which is also the theme of the session, connecting at least the water energy nexus in agriculture, and then solving for what we should chase for instead of, and being and able to appreciate the sense of urgency and discovering the scenarios of change. And much beyond has been said in the last commentary again. So I think a list of challenges have been framed. And before we get into the next important part, which is solutioning for them, let's quickly get a sort of sense from the audience. How many of us think that 80% of the big issues, right, really fundamental issues, has been sort of listed out by this panel? So we are okay going ahead in the solutioning. Like, just a show of hand. Okay. How many of us think that there are actually many more significant challenges that have not been talked about? Okay. So very quickly, let's take the mic to the five of those who sort of raise the hands. But the request really is to frame one line. What is that one line challenge that you think should be included in the conversation going ahead?
Let me wait for someone else to go first. I don't want to set the wrong connotation. Who's going?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay. So yeah, no, I think we need to talk in a greater length about the involvement of market in this mitigation, the climate change mitigation. I think there's something is missing in every discussions wherever I'm going, and I would like to bring the focus on that subject. This is important. We are only talking about very, very minuscule percentage of government's role in subsidy distribution. That's not even 1%.
Right.
What about the bigger chunk?
Yeah.
Let's talk about that.
Yes. One line, please. Can we go to this table first?
Yes, thank you. So I noted down few points. Since you said like one point, like it's as simple as like simple human decency. So any technology we talk about, like it always exploits someone when we are talking about engineering solutions, right? Be it energy for that matter, or be it like any engineering solutions we are providing, be it lithium, cobalt, whatever it is, there is some rural community which has been exploited in the far off corners we never thought about. So for me, it is always comes down to simple human decency and human rights.
No. So, yes, because the question that I'm asking is, what is that fundamental challenge that is impeding us to scale solutions of agriculture mitigation solutions?
Exactly the point. So when we are talking about technology innovations, it has to be coming from a system background. It should be thought about like all possibilities of outcomes. It should not be like very short time or short time focused frameworks. It should include a larger scope, basically, right? Yeah, long-term prospects.
Okay. So not having a long-term perspective and interconnected perspectives potentially takes us in the wrong directions when we do the solution. That table, please.
I just wanted to supplement to what Satya was saying about women being neglected. I spent quite some time in Ranchi when Satya himself had taken me around the whole state.
Sir, you'll have to remain brief.
I can't be remain brief. No, I'll tell you why. It's a very, very serious question. And that's one of the reasons why we are having this challenge. So if you will permit, then I'd like to...
Please.
Yeah. Now the question is, he happened to take me to a place where I'm from Nabad, incidentally, was rather, I'm retired now. And he had taken me to a place where we had given some funding for vermiculture for women, because they don't get loans, they don't get any other investment. So the grant was the only thing that Nabad could give them. And with that, they had done something. And after about a month or two, when I had gone there, I found that the whole thing had crashed. So when I asked him what happened, he said, बारिश के कारण. तो मैंने कहा आप लोग बारिश पर कुछ छत नहीं डालते? नहीं, हम लोगों को चढ़ना नहीं चाहिए. Ladies को चढ़ना नहीं चाहिए. Among the culture. Now this cultural barrier is something which we cannot overnight try to solve it. And unfortunately, I think Satya forgot to mention that particular point.
Great point made. So I had only seen 5 hands. So this is one. So basically 3. We'll go to this table, then to Madam there and to Sir there. But you'll have to promise me one line.
Sure, sure. I'm a person with, small words. We have created all these changes all these changes are needed and the actors are the people. I think we are not discussing much. 1 crore SHGs are here in our country and their institutions, and the number of the SHG members are 10 crores, meaning that 50 crores populations are there. They are going to take the things forward. They are the change makers. We are not talking about that. How do we energize these people to take things forward? That is the missing things. Just one example. In the COVID, some of the blocks are being fully vaccinated with the help of SHG and their institutions. I know some of the blocks. That is the one point. Second point is, out of all this, I have seen that 15% people have said yes, that we can do it more than 50%. 35% people says that less than 50%, and 50% people are undecided. So if we think that we cannot, we'll never will be able to do that. If we think we can, yes, we can. That's the point. Thanks.
Great point made. And we are not capitalizing on the institutions and the change agents that we have. Yeah, please try.
I just want to say that I think the state-wise polls are different. That's why. So one nation, one vote could be one of the mitigators, because the states allocate their funds, that's a bigger challenge. Everybody has
Incoherent goals among the
incoherent
states.
agricultural waste management. Come to think of any goal, energy adoption, you have futures market for coal and oil still, right? And we investors are sulking on green energy. We don't make money on that.
Yeah.
That's one of the things.
And the last one from there.
One thing, I was looking at your urgency and ATCs. One point is, we talked about also the micro actions. The political will and the mandate is grossly messy. When I looked at the manifesto, all the political parties, regional and national, nowhere it finds a place on climate or climate related thing. We commit for the SDGs, but that doesn't have any kind of connection. And I see there is a point when I looked at the not agriculture, allied agriculture like the coal mining areas and mining areas, and we talk of just transition as part of the SDG. There is hardly any kind of connection. So there is a need for taking it out and integrating with policy, enforcement with incentivization for the company. That's my thought. Thank you.
Point noted. And let's wrap up with one last input. One line, please.
In the pilot phase, we are too eager to show a positive result, and which becomes a difficulty during implementation.
Patient piloting. Scientific piloting.
We are missing that.
Okay. I think now we have a good sort of picture of the challenges we are looking at. There are too many. I started with asking one big. Yeah, these are, definitely important challenges have been highlighted. Now the challenge to the panelists to think of the big solutions out there, and I think that would be also the opportunity to talk about some of your own works where these kind of challenges are being addressed. And if you are able to also uncover some of the learnings from there for the larger sector, would be nice. Maybe this time we start with you, Satya, from that side.
So one of the one of the opportunities that I see, or it can be seen also as a kind of a major challenge, because for the farmers it's a major challenge. We just look at the land quality, the soil, etc. Today also in the morning sessions we discussed about enough on soil organic carbons, and almost 40% of India's lands are irreversibly degraded. So out of 300 million hectares, you can safely assume that at least 60 to 70 million hectares are irreversibly degraded. So we, as a company like Cognisphere Solutions, we actually target those lands. This is one example that I can tell you. Now, these are the lands which are available in Madhya Pradesh, in highland districts of West Bengal like Purulia, Bankura, or entire Chhattisgarh or Jharkhand and these places. Now, these kinds of lands are all privately owned, and these constitute about 60%, in certain cases 80% of the total land holding of smallholder farmers. Just imagine. So agriculture happens only in the valleys, thin strips of valleys, and the rest is actually all left for degradation. So sometimes back, maybe 100 years back, there happened to be forest, but forest doesn't exist nowadays, and you can find that these lands are subjected to continuous process of degradation, soil erosion, etc., etc. Talking about soil organic carbon actually is formed in the first 3-4 inches layer. And if you allow your soil to be degraded every year, to be washed off every year, because these are also in the high rainfall areas, 1200, 1400 millimeter of rainfall with undulations. So these are, this is actually a kind of an irreversible process. And people, because they have very limited land, completely dependent on rain-fed farming, so produce not enough to cater to even 6 months to 8 months of food security at the household level. So thank God that we now have this National Food Security Mission and this kind of acts that has come, which has actually enabled every family to be poorer families to be entitled of certain amount of food grains. Now men are losing hope in agriculture. The women are left in the villages to take care of old and infirm and kids, etc., and also to carry out agriculture. So that's the kind of scenario. Talk to any of the young people in the villages, the educated male, they are not interested in agriculture because agriculture become, not remunerative enough to retain them in the villages. So that's the kind of scenario. So now in these kinds of lands, what we are saying that, these lands are not suitable for agriculture anymore unless you do something very drastic. So huge amount of investment in soil conservation, irrigation, etc., unless that happens, and public investments are not available. I have tried for, almost for 5 years, we have models. In Pradhan, we have developed this kind of models over many, many years. And when we found that, yes, the building blocks are all available, let's go and talk to the government, talk about scale up. And they say that, the only way could be just up Narega se le lijiye. So, and we all know that, what best can be done with, Narega money. This is, you want to create durable assets, good quality assets in the hands of people. It's extremely difficult. Today it's plantation. Next year, the same money would be spent on Swachh Bharat Mission. Third year, it could be spent on something else, some roads and culverts. And also it changes with the, change in the DM or the DC. So that's also a kind of a reality. So in such situation, we came across people who are interested in investing in land development, agroforestry and plantation. Now, so they are the kind of corporates who have, through their business processes, they emit a lot of GHGs. They have huge commitment to offset carbon dioxide and remove carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. And they were looking for opportunities of investment in order to create plantations, agroforestry models, which can actually sequester a lot of carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. Now, if you know a kind of a model, and in all these years of training, in Pradhan, made me think that yes, if you can keep people at the center, and especially work with the smallholder farmers, and through a participatory process, if you can actually build the plan for this landscape restoration, it is possible that you can come up with a very solid, robust model. And that's what has happened through years of trial and error. Finally, this model is available, and we said that okay, we have a model and we have deep community connect, we know how to mobilize communities, etc. And that's how we are currently working with these investors in Madhya Pradesh, in West Bengal, in Jharkhand. Currently, we have promoted nearly 6,000, 7,000 hectares of plantation. These are all belonging to smallholder farmers. We have a pipeline of no less than developing 50,000 hectares of plantations in the next 10 years. It is possible to get very high quality money, provided that you have a model. You have a model which can actually then offer a beautiful, very sustainable, good, robust livelihood opportunity for the rural communities. On the other hand, if the model has the strength of sequestering carbon on a long-term basis, it is possible to mobilize large-scale investments. And at the same time, I do not think that I do anything different than my in my previous days in Pradhan, of engaging with the community, training, organizing women into self-help groups, training them, helping them to promote nurseries, plant trees, protect and manage the trees, so on and so forth. And in combination with these plantations, we have also set up irrigation systems. We have also promoting the agriculture in between the rows, intercrops, etc. So all those things were discussed in the first session itself. I think that we have models, and it is possible to have finance. It is possible to have communities who would be eager to deploy their lands, even if they are smallholder farmers, and that's where my hope lies. Thank you.
Thank you, Satya. I already see applause for the work you're doing. I think the two big takeaways that I take is really coming up with innovative, tailored models that work for that region and those people, and not relying and trying to really find ways to capitalize on private sector action and corporate capacities to sustain such programs. Now, maybe I'll move to Karan, you, to share from your experience. You look at the world from energy side. What solutions do you think can actually address? And if ideal, if you can also list out, when you're speaking, these are the kind of challenges these kind of solutions are able to address, so it is more transferable for the sector.
Thanks, Apurv, and thanks, Satya, also. I think with all the questions that the audience had put out, I have bucketed into 4 parts, and I will go through them one by one. One of the things that we look at doing in our member countries is put up innovative pilots. And, I'll take you through 2 stories that we had, where the first one was actually piloting solar pump sets in 22 countries of Africa. This was actually based on a very successful bulk procurement model of LEDs in India. We had great lessons there. So we took the lessons and replicated that for solar pumps. And I think that's your point on the pilots being designed innovatively. It was not a technology pilot, it was more of a business model pilot. And it was a big exercise of doing a bulk procurement price discovery exercise for 250,000 pumps. What we saw after this exercise was that the price per horsepower fell by 40%. And that was a remarkable decrease. But any guesses of how many countries then came forward to actually close the deal? 0. So we had a successful price discovery project, but what we figured out was that there was a huge diversity in the procurement rules and regulations of the country. And that's what enabled us to get into trainings and capacity building and also empowering local entrepreneurs. So, sir, to your point on capacity building initiatives, because I think I was listening to some of the remarks very carefully, and I think enforcement, while being incentivizing action, was the key. So we run a local entrepreneurship program called as the Solar X Challenge. We have just done it for Africa, and where some of these lessons from the demonstration projects we put out as problem statements for the local entrepreneurs to come on board and do it.
The second one that we have.
We had a lot of lessons from was the solar cold storage. It's a well-established technology, but almost everywhere has no working business model. We tried putting up one in Djibouti, Senegal, Bhutan and Seychelles. And in Senegal, what we are seeing is that we put it out as cooling as a service pilot. We have a very meager rental fee per crate that we put out, a 90% utilization rate. But then the case is after a year or 2 years of the International Solar Alliance support, who takes it forward? So hopefully with the changes in regulations and the local entrepreneurs coming up, that comes up as one of the things. Capacity building I've touched upon. Upfront cost is a huge problem. And everybody here is aware that solar investments in solar are rising, costs are going down. But one of the things we figured out was that the investments were going up phenomenally in large-scale solar technologies and also in more mature economies. So if you were to look at a decentralized solar project in a remote part of Africa, the risk perception of both the technology and the country was superbly high. Why I say perception? Because the non-payment of loans was actually just between 1.8 to 2.5%, which is perceived to be very high. But so we've started a guarantee program on that part. This is the Global Solar Facility. Hopefully should be in function by end of this year. And we have the whole idea is to look at decentralized solar solutions across least developed countries to promote these kind of perceived risks that are to be going on. I think in the last session, the lady from Ford Foundation had raised the cost of that. Yes, there is availability of finance. It's about repurposing it, and a big part of what we see is the upfront cost part. So there is a viability gap fund that we provide to some of the projects that want to get established in these geographies and are catering to that developmental need. So up to 30% of the project costs are supported by us. But bringing all of this together, I think one thing that I was hearing some of the people say was that it's about bringing around a coherence in some of these actions. Raj was also mentioning on this, and this is a huge issue that we see in our member countries as well. It's a energy access issue, it's a diesel import bill issue, it's a capacity issue, and all of that. So we are trying to bring it all together in the energy departments, where a big part of the diesel bills and the import bills and the expenditures are happening, to bring about this coherence across sectors through the setting up of national solar units. These start as support units for the first 3 years and hopefully get absorbed by these country governments as national solar units, very much on the successful model of the Montreal Protocol, where all of these countries have a national ozone unit. So these are the 4 chunks of what we are trying to do. And I'll end by saying that it's essentially development done right, which has a lot of climate co-benefits, that are there to be reaped. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, Karan. Really sustaining from pilot to scale up and really solving for all the challenges throughout, tailoring really for the next stage is one big message I take. Obviously, there are more. Raj, what do you think then from the work at WB that we can learn, and what is transferable to address these challenges?
Thank you so much. It has been so much enriching to hear everyone and think through that. I think one of the things which World Bank does increasingly, and now our, as Mr. Banga is heading the institution, he has brought this climate change into the forefront. And we are talking of quality of life in and livable planet. In this planet dialogue, I wanted to emphasize that what is the development focus? Development focus is wellness. Everybody would like to see that we have a well-being for the smallholders, even for everyone who is there. Now, in that discussion, what we encourage during the project formulation periods and all is a multi-stakeholder discussions and consultations. What we strongly believe in that all the key stakeholders needs to come together and discuss, with an open-minded. So that I think is very important, because when we cannot, dream of a situation that we have a climate change ministry which talks about integration of everything. We have separate ministries, but at least we can invite everyone and say that, how we do that. So that's one level. What we can do at the land level, as Mr. Satyabrata you said, we are seeing that, how in a smallholder situation, integrated farming systems, give a lot of, opportunities there. And then they find their local solutions. Agroforestry gets integrated, horticulture gets integrated, your natural resource management gets integrated and all. So how do we do at macro level and micro level that, consultation and do that? That's one. Then second is that even we have not yet talked about, MRV, which is very important, that, how we monitor this entire thing and, get verified. I think in that space, I will just try to reflect upon that. We are in an age of digital, era, where information technology is bringing on newer opportunities to connect all these pieces together, all these elements together. How do we use spatial technology? How do we use, digital technologies and all, and, bring these elements together to get to us a better learning, a better insight into that situation, and how do we can, contribute to that process. In that, I will also relate on research and development. I think research and development has been, we are not focusing on climate change. I think we have systems well built, that was, fitting into business as usual processes and all. How we can decentralize that, how we can, bring it that more closer to the, areas. Can ICR have a better connect with, KVKs? And the KVKs becomes the center, where we can have the demonstration sites, immersion sites, and where, we can have the learning grounds. Bank had invested into, in this area, a National Agriculture Technology Project and all. We are now discussing, how on the digital agriculture side, we can, push the agenda further and help mainstream that discussion. Anything, Anthony?
No. I was asking for the time.
Yeah. One more approach, which we are thinking, from that, space that, like why we are not seeing scale. We are seeing many islands of success everywhere, like Pradhan itself as an organization has done so much, and we have in many projects, we can see that, we have excellent, this thing. Why we cannot learn from each other? Why the best practices do not have legs? Why, that it doesn't, cross village to village learning? Why, the district to district learning doesn't happen? Why state to state learning doesn't happen, So we encourage that, in our programs and even globally, So what is happening in China? What is happening in Romania? How do we learn from that? I think we have to work a lot, invest a lot in first unlearning ourselves and learning from others and seeing that what can work best and how do we do that, and that also will be driven by the urgency. And I'll just take 2 minutes more. Ashish coined the very good word that is favorite to me, is this entire climate change is the creation of market, but I think market also is looking for solutions, right? Market is the key driver in the process. Whatever the growth driver and all, that is their market. But market also, it could be a solution. Now, the way I am seeing market as a solution is that market is looking for new values. Now we are talking about ESG, environmental values, social values, economic values. How do we create that? But in that value creation, we need to understand the space ourselves. Now, when Sir said about the vermiculture unit, Ashokji, you said in Jharkhand you visited. I find that where we are missing is that this gentleman's perspective about biodiversity in vermiculture. Because the entire, earthworms we have not understood. We have concentrated vermicompost, and in that only one species from a different country we have scaled up, as a part of scaling up that approach. So I am trying to understand that in that scaling effort, should we bring in greater insight of localization? Can we understand our local earthworms? Where is the local earthworm of Tamil Nadu and Chhattisgarh different? There are different earthworms. That earthworm science has been negated because we have followed a industrial insight to see the scale. So I think where we need to think through is that how we bring in localized understanding, that it will require research and development, that will require digital science and this thing. But this will first require our unlearning to see that where we are missing the bus. And in that we are trying to advocate now a landscape approach for the land and for the ocean and oceanscape approach. Now in the landscape approach, when we talk of agriculture, we should not start with agriculture, but we start with, water energy nexus. So water is coming from where? It is the water cycle. We need to understand the water cycle starts from the hills and from the forest, and then the watersheds, and then the riverines, and the energy requirement of this. We have, like all the dams that we are dependent on this, that has changed the riverine, health. And that is causing this civilization to, so we have some harder questions there. We need to see that, where we can nail that problem. Now in that, then we talk of agroforestry, then we talk of, farming systems, integrated farming systems, and we create value proposition like we are seeing the wellness market internationally, globally is now around $5 trillion. They are looking for, the value proposition which is natural, which is coming from the forest areas, which is less chemical and all. The customer is willing to pay more for that. So how do we connect to that? Now the cotton, when we say the cotton, we see the cotton as the cotton lint, but the entire cotton plant, that also is a biomass, that's also a produce. Similarly, any crops, say paddy, we are interested in paddy grain, but what about the paddy plant? That's also a biomass. These all biomass is now getting, value added in the form of textile. I met one entrepreneur, they are doing alt material, the entire thing. So even some companies, they produce linen from the biomass. How do we do that? There is biochar possibility on the lower end. There are, active charcoal that is possible. So those values, if we can help capture and support the smallholders to get the benefit from the market, I think then we can connect all these dots together and we can make all together we can then make our effort to see that, how do we, advance the sustainability agenda. I don't think only unidirectional, one tangential, effort will help us to think about the scale which, we are aiming for so desperately. Thank you.
Wow, very rich responses. I think we have discovered some very real meaningful contours on which the solutioning should happen, some transferable learnings for everyone. I don't want to repeat what has been said, but I think a lot is possible based on these contours. Just we don't have enough time to discuss then who needs to sort of enable solutioning on this front as per these guiding principles that we are discovering together. But do we still have time for a couple of questions? Yeah. Sorry for the delay. The innovation led to delays, But let's take up a couple of questions. Manas, yeah.
I would just like to draw the attention to this equity issue. We are talking of mitigation, but adaptation is very important for the most vulnerable. If we put the burden on them for mitigation as well, instead of ensuring a minimum standard of life, I don't think it will be fair. And that is how we have performed so far. You talk about PM KSY, Prime Minister Kisi Sosai Yojana, 1/3 went to canal irrigation area, another 1/3 went for drip irrigation. Where will they be used? Where already irrigation is ensured. So all the policies, where the per capita subsidy is highest, Punjab, already we know. So this is how it has happened. So first priority, I think, has to be to ensure minimum standard of life to the most vulnerable who have contributed least to this crisis. So mitigation is important, but I think adaptation, because the kind, again, another study, IFAD study, if you see 2020 report, it says smallholders have only got, even though climate finance has increased and it has, I think it was the highest in 2018 or something, 2% only has reached the smallholders. So we need to talk about all that how to ensure a minimum standard of life for the most vulnerable so that they live in the village and then they take care of the resources. Otherwise, another data, 47% women are migrating. Women's migration is increasing. That means it is becoming more and more difficult for the families to stay in the village. So if we cannot do that to help them stay in the village and we talk about all these big ideas, again, the resources are going to better off.
Yeah.
And how to put the burden of mitigation on the people who have at least minimum standard of life rather than the poorest, that also is something we need to think of when we come up with all these policies.
Yeah. Definitely better targeting and prioritization.
I would like to just reflect you.
Okay.
Few seconds. I think this is very important. I think in market, we usually employ a framework of segmentation and targeting. So similarly in agriculture also, we need to see that, we have a clear segmentation. When we talk of mitigation, yes, irrigated agriculture, within that also pockets, where the diesel pumping is going on, more, where the livestock, issues are more pronounced. There we need to have a mitigation more pronounced, and then, the policies that has to be very differentiated, at that level. Similarly, for the smallholders, I think adaptation and mitigation can go hand in hand also, and they can also contribute through particularly agroforestry. Pardon? Absolutely. This has to be.
Yeah. Let's move to others who may have questions. So people who haven't spoken earlier, maybe we can prioritize them. So I see one there.
I'll
And maybe she raised her hands first, and then we'll come to you. Yeah, there is a mic here.
Hello. Hi. So I'm from the Organic Cotton Accelerator, and first of all, great conversation. There were a couple of points and a question also. The first point was that I still feel it's a very, and this is my personal opinion, I still feel it's a very top-down approach when we discuss about climate change and the activities that need to be done. We need to have the all stakeholders in the room when we discuss things like these and get a more, rooted and a grounded sense of reality. But what me and my colleague, we were also discussing is the fact that while we discuss about climate change and what can be done, and you mentioned about biochar and mulching and all these activities or banning of urea, there is no conversation around organic or regenerative agriculture. And the fact that, we work with farmers who are working on organic and regenerative agriculture, and it takes time for them to, convert from chemical to organic. And it's not like farmers don't understand the value of organic and regenerative agriculture. But certainly there needs to be some sort of mechanisms to help farmers convert, slowly, piece by piece, because we also have, majority of them are now smallholder farmers. And with the kind of conditions that we have, whether they're, agronomic conditions or geographical the conditions in terms of rainfall and etc. So don't you think that that is also necessary when we discuss topics like these in forums like this?
Yeah, anyone wants to respond?
Yeah, no, absolutely. This is no brainer. Like when we talk of integrating these things, like conservation agriculture, and around that, like organic, regenerative agriculture. There are many, phrases that has been developed, but the basic fundamentals is that all the elements contributing to agriculture needs to be, seen that, how they are, coming together in one piece. And farmer knows the best. And even not only here in the smallholder farmers, even the farmers in US, in Europe, everywhere they have now started, learning back. So they are now seeing India, China, and all Southeast Asia as countries where they can bring this learning. So we have a huge responsibility also to inform, the global farmers and the agriculture. But thing is that we need to first unlearn. It is not like, I'll take few seconds more. As an advisory connect, we had agriculture extension system, right? And my take is on the word extension. Extension means what? I know, you do not know. I am extending from lab to land. This has to be reversed, as you say, that bottom-up approach, that, how do we learn from those regenerative principles wherever they are? Might be in Brazil, might be in Chhattisgarh, might be in Australia, but we bring back and learn. So how fast we can help connect these things, through the modern IT solutions, and all the practitioners coming together, I think then we will find the solutions emerging very fast.
Yeah. Sorry, the two questions took all the time, so we'll have to...
Thank you.
You'll have to be very brief.
I know, I'll be very... I think what you are saying, extension, and I'll start from that. To me, extension is the extension of the self. And therefore, learning from from the land, from the people is most crucial. And I think we need to look at all the development from a holistic approach rather than an analytical approach, the Gestaltian approach. And therefore, I would agree to your point, sir, and that is also requirement of the day, that the examples, the small examples need to be collated together. And that is not happening. That reminds me of a solar Sakhi system in Jharkhand that was started, but that was somewhere not captured, not replicated. So this is my point, and therefore these are the areas I think we need to deliberate about. Thank you so much.
I think that's a great note to conclude the session on, that we need to find ways to collectively learn better and evolve our own ways of thinking and strategies to work towards mitigation and adaptation. So with that, let me not keep us away from the lunch. I think that's in order. And thank the great panelists that we had for all the enriching responses that we saw, and the great audience that we had.